You know those wildfires burning through Los Angeles right now?
Yeah.
It's January.
Right.
And we're already seeing these devastating fires.
It's crazy, right?
It's a grim reminder that California's fire season
Yeah,
seems to be turning into a year-round concern.
totally.
2 lives lost, over 100,000 people evacuated,
Awful.
thousands of acres burned. The human and environmental costs are just staggering.
Yeah, they are.
But today,
Yeah.
we're going to kind of dive into a different angle.
Right.
The business and financial fallout.
Okay.
This isn't just about the immediate damage.
Right.
It's about the ripple effects that could make these fires like
Oh, wow.
the most expensive in U.S. history.
That's right. UCLA climate scientist Daniel Swain
Oh, wow.
is already predicting that.
Really?
And when we talk about costliest,
Yeah.
it goes far beyond just like the heartbreaking images of homes and businesses destroyed.
Of course.
We're talking long-term economic impacts
Yeah.
that can cripple entire industries.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little.
Yeah.
When a climate scientist says costliest,
Uh-huh.
what factors are they considering?
Okay.
It can't just be the immediate property damage, right?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
The fires are a shock to the system,
Yeah.
and the economic pain reverberates outwards.
Oh, wow.
There's the obvious,
Yeah.
rebuilding costs, lost inventory for businesses, firefighting expenses. But then it gets more complex.
Okay.
Businesses are shut down, people can't work,
Right.
supply chains are disrupted.
Makes sense.
That hits everything from local shops
Wow.
to major industries.
Yeah,
And California relies so heavily on tourism.
totally.
But who wants to vacation in a disaster zone?
Right.
So you've got hotels, restaurants,
Yeah.
attractions all taking a hit?
So this fire year concept that Governor Newsom mentioned,
Right.
November, December, now January, there's no fire season. It's fire year.
Yeah.
Isn't just like a kitschy phrase. It's a fundamental shift in how businesses have to operate, right?
Absolutely. Businesses rely on some degree of predictability.
Yeah.
And this throws a wrench into that.
For sure.
Think about agriculture, for instance.
Okay.
Farmers depend on these specific weather patterns
Right.
to grow their crops.
Makes sense.
These unpredictable fires can wipe out entire harvests,
Really?
disrupting food supplies, causing prices to spike.
Wow.
It's a domino effect that impacts everyone.
This is where it gets really interesting to me.
Yeah.
We've got these powerful Santa Ana winds.
Yeah.
NBC Los Angeles reported them hitting 100 miles per hour,
Really?
creating what they called critical fire weather conditions.
Oh, wow.
But then you layer on the fact that last year's heavy rainfall
Uh-huh.
actually made things worse.
Right. It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But all that rain led to abundant vegetation growth,
Okay?
which is now dried out,
Right.
creating this massive fuel load for these fires.
Wow.
It's what we call weather whiplash. These wild swings between extremes.
Yeah.
And it's a hallmark of climate change.
Of course.
That kind of unpredictability
Yeah.
makes it incredibly difficult for businesses to adapt.
I'm starting to understand how these fires become economic nightmares.
Yeah.
It's not just the flames, it's the chain reaction that follows.
Precisely. Let's take a closer look at those ripple effects.
Okay.
We've discussed direct costs,
Right.
property damage, firefighting, etc.
Right.
But what about the less obvious indirect costs?
Okay.
Those can be even more devastating in the long run.
Give us some examples. What are we talking about here?
Think about the healthcare system.
Okay.
Smoke inhalation injuries,
Right.
the mental health toll of displacement and trauma.
Of course.
All of that adds up to increased healthcare costs,
Yeah.
both for individuals and the system as a whole.
Right.
Then there's lost productivity.
Right.
When businesses shut down or employees are dealing with the aftermath,
Yeah.
it impacts the entire economy.
And we haven't even touched on the long-term costs.
Exactly.
Rebuilding after a disaster like this
Yeah.
is a massive undertaking.
Exactly. Construction costs,
Yeah.
the need for skilled labor,
Right.
potential shortages of materials.
Of course.
It all adds up.
Wow.
And what about property values?
Yeah.
If your home or business is in an area now perceived as high risk for wildfires,
Right.
good luck selling it or getting affordable insurance.
Wow.
That's another major blow to the local economy.
So who ultimately bears the brunt of these costs?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It can't just be the individual homeowners and businesses
Right.
directly affected, can it?
Definitely not. There's a shared burden.
Okay.
Taxpayers contribute through government aid and disaster relief funds.
Makes sense.
And then there's the complex world of insurance.
Right.
Are companies equipped to handle these increasingly frequent and severe events?
That's a good question.
It's a question the entire industry is grappling with right now.
This is all pretty sobering. But before we go down the rabbit hole of despair,
Okay.
I'm curious about solutions.
Sure.
Are there things businesses can do beyond just hoping for the best?
There are, and I think that's where we should focus next.
Okay.
Let's shift gears and explore some of the ways California businesses
Okay.
are starting to adapt to this fire year reality.
Wow.
It's not about eliminating risk entirely,
Right.
but about building resilience and finding ways to not just survive,
Yeah.
but thrive.
Awesome. I'm excited to hear about that.
You know, it's fascinating to see how some businesses
Yeah.
are tackling this challenge head on.
Okay.
Take the wine industry, for example.
Oh, right.
They're dealing with a double whammy.
Uh-huh.
The obvious threat of vineyards burning,
Right.
but also the less obvious risk of smoke taint,
Right.
where smoke particles absorbed by grapes can ruin entire vintages.
Yeah, smoke taint. I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
You can make the wine taste like an ashtray, right?
Exactly.
That's got to be a financial nightmare for wineries.
It's a huge risk. So some wineries are investing
Yeah.
in these advanced irrigation systems
Okay.
that create sort of a protective water shield around the vines.
Wow.
During a fire, others are using drones equipped with infrared cameras
Really?
to detect early signs of fire
Oh.
so they can react faster.
So it's a mix of high-tech and back-to-basics approaches.
Right, and we're seeing that in other industries too.
Okay.
The construction industry, for instance,
Okay.
is increasingly focused on fire-resistant building materials,
Like what?
concrete steel, even certain treated woods
Oh, wow.
that are less likely to ignite.
Okay.
They're also incorporating design features that can help homes withstand ember attacks,
Timber attacks.
which are often how fires spread from house to house.
It makes you wonder if there are lessons we can learn
Yeah,
from communities that have historically dealt with wildfires.
absolutely. Indigenous communities in California
Oh.
have practiced controlled burns for centuries,
Yeah.
intentionally setting small managed fires
Wow.
to clear out underbrush and reduce fuel loads.
That's interesting. It seems counterintuitive, but
Yeah,
I guess it makes sense to fight fire with fire in a controlled way.
exactly. It's a practice that fell out of favor for a while,
Right.
but now there's a growing recognition that
Yeah.
it can be an effective way to prevent larger, more destructive wildfires.
So we're seeing a resurgence of controlled burns.
Yeah.
That seems like a good thing, but I imagine there are challenges too.
There are. It requires careful planning, community buy-in,
Yeah.
and the right weather conditions.
Of course.
There's always a risk that a controlled burn could escape and cause damage.
Right.
It's a balancing act,
Yeah.
weighing the potential benefits against the risks.
And that's where government policy and incentives come into play, right?
Exactly. Things like tax breaks or subsidies
Yeah.
for businesses that invest in fire-resistant construction
Okay.
or water conservation technologies,
Okay.
or providing financial assistance to communities for controlled burns,
Mhm.
or improving their emergency response capabilities.
Makes sense.
These are all ways to encourage businesses to invest in long-term solutions.
Because ultimately it's about recognizing
Yeah,
that this is a shared responsibility.
absolutely.
We're all in this together.
Right.
It's not just up to individual businesses to solve this problem.
Absolutely. And it requires a long-term perspective.
Yeah.
It's easy to focus on the immediate crisis when the flames are raging.
Right.
But we need to think about how to create a more resilient future
Yeah.
where California businesses can not just survive, but thrive
Right.
in the face of a changing climate.
So where do we go from here?
Well,
What are some of the most promising solutions on the horizon?
one area that's really exciting
Yeah.
is the use of artificial intelligence
AI.
to predict and track wildfires.
AI? That sounds incredibly futuristic.
It is.
How does that even work?
Researchers are developing algorithms
Right.
that analyze huge amounts of data,
Okay.
like weather patterns, vegetation types,
Yeah.
and historical fire data.
Okay.
They can identify high-risk areas, predict where a fire is likely to spread,
Wow.
and even estimate its intensity.
So it's like having a crystal ball
Yeah,
that can tell us where the next fire might break out.
it's not quite a crystal ball,
Okay.
but it's getting us closer.
Yeah.
These AI-powered tools can give firefighters a significant advantage,
Right.
helping them allocate resources more effectively
Okay.
and potentially giving communities more time to prepare.
That's amazing. It sounds like AI could be a game changer
Yeah,
in how we fight wildfires.
definitely.
But what about during an active fire? Can AI help then too?
Absolutely. Drones equipped with AI-powered cameras
Okay.
can provide real-time imagery,
Oh,
identifying hotspots and helping firefighters make more strategic decisions
wow.
about how to attack the blaze.
Right.
It's like having a bird's-eye view of the entire fire,
Yeah.
which is incredibly valuable in a chaotic situation.
It sounds like technology is playing an increasingly important role in mitigating wildfire risks.
Right.
What other innovations are you seeing?
Another interesting area is the development of new fire retardants.
Yeah.
Traditional retardants have been effective,
Right.
but they can have negative environmental impacts.
Huh?
Scientists are working on bio-based alternatives that are biodegradable and less harmful to plants and wildlife.
So it's about finding solutions that are effective in fighting fires,
Right.
but also sustainable in the long run.
Exactly. It's a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Better prediction, more targeted firefighting techniques,
Yeah.
eco-friendly solutions, and a deep understanding of how to manage our landscapes
Right.
to minimize risk.
That sounds like a lot to juggle,
Yeah,
but it also sounds like there's reason for optimism.
there is.
We're starting to see some real progress in how we approach this challenge.
But we can't forget the root cause of these increasingly frequent and intense wildfires,
Right.
climate change.
Right. Even with all the best technology and prevention strategies.
Yeah.
We have to address the underlying issue of a warming planet.
Absolutely. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions,
Right.
transitioning to renewable energy sources,
Right.
and investing in climate adaptation measures.
Yeah.
These are all critical.
Of course.
It's a complex challenge, but one we need to confront if we want to create a sustainable future for California businesses and communities.
It's a stark reminder that this issue goes far beyond business and finance.
Yeah.
It's about the health of our planet
Yeah.
and the well-being of future generations.
Couldn't agree more. And while we're talking about taking action,
Yeah.
maybe this is a good time to shift our focus to the individual level.
You mean what can people do to protect themselves and their businesses?
Yeah,
Even if they're not a major corporation or a government agency?
exactly, because even small actions can make a difference.
All right, so we've covered the big picture, the economic havoc. These fires can wreak the role of climate change and some pretty amazing innovations happening at the industry level. But let's zoom in on what individuals can actually do if you're in California. What are some concrete steps to prepare for this new reality of living with wildfires?
That's a question more and more people are asking, and the good news is even small steps can make a big difference. It starts with awareness, knowing your risk.
Okay, break that down for me. What does knowing your risk actually entail?
Think about where you live or where your business is located. Is it in an area prone to wildfires? What kind of vegetation is nearby? Are there potential fire hazards close to your property? Once you have a handle on your risk level, you can start taking steps to mitigate it.
So awareness is step one. What comes next?
Creating what's called defensible space. Essentially, you're clearing away brush, trees, anything flammable within a certain radius of your home, or building the idea is to create a buffer zone that can slow or stop the spread of a fire.
It makes sense. It's like building a fire moat around your property. How much space do you need to clear?
It depends on things like the slope of your land and the type of vegetation. A good rule of thumb is to aim for at least 100 feet of defensible space. And within that zone, focus on removing dead leaves, pine needles, any debris that could easily catch fire-trimmed trees. So branches are at least 10 feet from your roof and chimney.
Okay, that's the outside. What about inside? Anything we can do to make our homes more fire resistant?
Absolutely. Smoke detectors and fire extinguishers are a must-have an escape plan that everyone in your household knows and practices regularly. And it's not a bad idea to have a go bag, ready a backpack with essentials like water, food, medications, important documents, just in case you need to evacuate quickly.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this, but it sounds like a lot of it is just common sense and preparation.
Exactly. And
Huh.
don't underestimate the power of community. Get to know your neighbors, share information about fire safety, maybe even form a neighborhood watch group to keep an eye out for potential hazards in a wildfire situation. Helping each other can be just as important as taking care of yourself.
It's about building that culture of resilience individually and as a community. That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
It's not about living in fear. It's about being proactive and taking action.
Couldn't agree more. And one final thought, especially for business owners. Don't wait for a fire to happen before you start thinking about your resilience plan. Take the time now to assess your risks, develop a plan, and put measures in place to protect your business and your employees. It's an investment that could pay off in a big way down the line.
Wise words. So there you have it, folks, our deep dive into the business and financial fallout of California wildfires, along with some practical steps you can take to prepare for this new reality. Remember, knowledge is power. By understanding the risks and the solutions, we can all play a part in building a more resilient future.
Absolutely. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay safe.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those questions coming.